All right, let's begin. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Bank Observatory Community Zoom. This is a bit of a departure for us. We're here to talk about the GBO and NRAO reintegration. Before we get started, though, just a couple announcements about what's happening at the observatory. I'm joining you from Western Ireland. I'm in a small seaside village. If my internet is a bit choppy, that's the reason. Apologies. Um, The observatory is having its GBT training workshop this week. And next week, we will be having the NRAO GBO Joint Time Allocation Committee meeting. We are back on the air after our summer shutdown, back to normal operations. We've tested our radar transmitter software and pointing this week, and all is well. So we will have a radar run in a couple weeks. So with that said, let's just launch right into today's topic, which is the GBO and NRAO reintegration. We're joined here today by with Tony Beasley, the NRAO director, who can help answer questions at the end of the presentation. So NSF has mandated that after several years as an independent observatory, that GBO should reintegrate with NRAO beginning October 1st, 2024. And that has happened. GBO had separated from NRAO in 2016 to become an independent observatory as a result of the NSF portfolio review of astronomical facilities. And at that time, it was decided that GBO should split from NRAO and change its funding model to rely more heavily on contractual funding from the partners. GBO did so, and did so very successfully. The majority of the contractual funding had come from two major partners, Breakthrough Listen and Nanograv, and we, of course, are very grateful for their support. These contractual arrangements will continue to evolve and change. Breakthrough Listen has will still continue to fund us, but at a somewhat lower level. And Nanograv has some of its funding has also gone, but we're keen on picking up new partners, and we have some excellent prospects for that. So NSF operates observatories with a cooperative service agreement, and Green Bank's observatory cooperative service agreement was with AUI. And this is the same parent organization as NRAO. But the difference is that the GBO's cooperative service agreement was independent of NRAO, so the funding was an independent stream. Now, GBO is a smaller organization than NRAO, and so some of the things it didn't make sense for a small organization to take on all by ourselves. And so we entered into several service level agreements with NRAO to provide certain services where it didn't make sense for GBO to do that. Among them was human resources, IT support, time allocation, library services. There are a few others, but you get the gist of it. So in some sense, we were never really totally separated from NRAO. NRAO was providing these services, but there was a contractual agreement. And GBO has established an independent identity, advantageous for attracting new contracts and support from the West Virginia state and federal officials. So the advantages of reintegration, in my mind, the biggest one is the strengthening of the scientific synergies between GBO and NRAO. We have a lot of things that we're eager to achieve together. The radar project is a great example. We would use GBT as a transmitter and the NGVLA as receivers if that project gets funded. We certainly are involved in the VLBA observations when a large telescope is needed, and there are various others. Another interesting advantage is that it does eliminate some cumbersome cross-observatory processes. There was a lot of paperwork involved. Say NRAO wanted the GBO machine shop to build something for them. It was a tedious process, and unnecessarily so. The nice thing for Green Bank is that we can tap into the broader NRAO experiences and resources in some of the key strategic areas that we're trying to build up, like data pipelines and program management and public relations. And of course, there's an efficiency in cross-observatory operations. Overall, this will be a more efficient operation because some of the redundancies at the two observatories will disappear. So let's talk about some of the synergies. I mentioned the radar, the high-power radar system with the GBT as a transmitter and the VLBA and eventually the NGVL antenna as a receiving station, we think is a very interesting and powerful new capability. And we are pursuing funding for this opportunity. In fact, we're going to be testing a low-power version of this transmitter on the telescope. We've already tested it and had some successful results. We're going to redeploy that instrument to demonstrate some different and compelling science. VLBI, with using the GBT as one of the elements in the high sensitivity array, really improves the sensitivity of the whole array and improves the calibration. And so for those experiments requiring that good sensitivity, adding the GBT as an element is very advantageous. NRAO and GBO are now doing joint management of the National Radio Quiet Zone. This is mandated by law, and Chris Dupree and Sheldon Wasick are working at Charlottesville on this in collaboration with us at GBO. We're also collaborating with them on their National Radio Dynamic Zone activities. And finally, I think there's going to be some interesting coordination between the GBO Electronics Lab, Machine Shop, and NRAO Central Development Lab as we enter into the NGVLA era. We'll certainly be helping to prototype new receivers, new feeds, and working closely with NRAO to develop some of this instrumentation. Some more synergies. What we can offer the NRAO, I think our machine shop is excellent. I know our machine shop is excellent, and they have expertise in developing and building feeds, receivers, and they troubleshoot prototype concepts. So our machinists are kind of expert in these sorts of designs, and they can help the designers by identifying problems that a normal machine shop may not be able to. We do have expertise in low noise single dish receivers. Now the NRAO has, of course, great expertise in correlators and state-of-the-art receivers. And as GBO develops its next suite of instrumentation, I'm sure we'll be tapping into that expertise. And finally, the GBO EPO program, we're very proud of it. It's excellent and may well serve as a model for expansion of NRAO EPO activities. So when we were told by the NSF that the reintegration was coming and we should think hard about it, we decided to implement some changes to try them out and to make sure that they were working by the time that reintegration was official as of last week. And so we moved the GBO software division as a team into the NRAO DMS division. Program management at GBO was moved into the NRAO program management division. Our GBO press information officer was moved into the NRAO team. And in all these areas, NRAO has larger teams and a broader base of expertise than GBO. So all this made some sense. But we didn't entirely say, there's no connection with the GBO. All the divisions still retain dotted line reporting to the GBO director. So we are still aware of what's happening in all these teams and have a say in their activities. So that's all gone well. And I don't think the users really noticed that this was happening in the background. And I think it shows that the reintegration should be pretty seamless for both the observatory staff and the users. The reintegration is beneficial. It's cost efficient. We no longer need to pay the fees for the service level agreements. And so it actually costs GBO a little less money to have the same functions. All these cumbersome cross-observatory processes have ended, so that creates efficiency. We will support the NRAO in our areas of strength: EPO, machine shop, receiver feed design, proto testing, training, and a test platform for new instrumentation. And NRAO will support GBO in strategic areas, especially data archiving, data pipelines, and public relations. So what are the impacts on you, the user? These changes are largely managerial. The budgets are essentially unaffected. The user support will continue at high levels at both GBO and NRAO. So I think in terms of the impact on users, I don't see how this will affect the general user. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
If there are questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Jim, did you want to read it from the chat, or we can read them for you?
If you read them, David, that would be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
I do not have anybody. Well, you have a large number of participants. It was up to, yeah, besides the 4 panelists, well, 68 total people here.
Yeah.
So out of 68 people, there should be somebody with a question.
You would think so. Tony, in the
There's a
meantime,
question.
did you have anything
There's
you
a
want to say?
question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there is a question in the question and answer there.
Oh, that's not showing up for me. Okay, hold it. I'm sorry.
So the question is from Elizabeth Jensen: what inspired the NRAO to change direction? I don't think it. When this change was implemented back in 2016, it was not our preference to do this. This separation of Green Bank arose out of a set of issues that NSF was interested in about 10 years ago. That about 10 years ago, NSF was very interested in the idea of recompeting all of its facilities to see if new partners and new funding opportunities would emerge. And so many of the NSF facilities were recompeted. Now, as it turned out, this was approaching it right around the time when ALMA was completing construction. And so I think the logic at NSF was that it would be more attractive and potentially someone would come forward with interest specifically in ALMA if they weren't competing the whole NRAO, all 4 instruments, if they were just doing a subset of them. And so Green Bank and the VLBA were kind of separated into these separate observatories. Now, as it turned out, that process in general of seeking, of recompeting and so on, did not have a lot of impact across the whole NSF. And I think very quickly the VLBA one was exposed for not being particularly efficient. Now, the net incremental cost of having Green Bank separated as an observatory was not high. It was not zero, but it's sort of a 15% signal or something like that. But I think that time rolled on, and as we got certainly after the COVID period, it was not seen that there were a lot of administrative or the reasons that had driven that change several years earlier had all sort of gone, and in fact most of those people had gone, and so it seemed more efficient and sort of a better way to operate things to merge Green Bank back in. But as Jim said, one of the things that did emerge during the separation was that there was a stronger sense of ownership community of a separate, have the best of both worlds now, merge it back in and maybe very slightly improve the efficiency of the situation overall, but keep that separate identity and the benefits that come with that. So I always kind of suspected this would happen. I wasn't sure when it would actually happen, but I am very glad now that this has been completed.
Thank you, Tony. We have another question. Does the reintegration offer more or less future employment opportunities?
Jim, you there?
He went dark.
Maybe Jim.
My internet is dropping out.
Okay. I'll have a quick go at it. I mean, I don't think it's a major change one way or the other. I think Green Bank is very well defined in the way it operates and so on, and NRAO likewise. There might be more opportunity for people to move around between the observatories and so on, so that's a great thing. But I don't anticipate the raw number of staff going up dramatically on either side as a result of reintegrating. Jim, you there? Yep.
I am, yeah.
Oh, we're up to 70 participants. Oh, sorry, I have another question. Will this affect the observing proposal / management? I think the easy answer there is we're already doing it together jointly, so I don't think it affects. We're not changing
Yeah,
direction.
NRAO already runs our time allocation process, so it shouldn't affect observing proposals. The changes in management I mentioned, there are a few divisions from Green Bank that are now more deeply embedded in NRAO, but that happened over a year ago. So surprise, if you haven't noticed then, you probably won't going forward in the future. And both NRAO and GBO were still part of AUI, and so we were working closely together anyway. So I don't really think there's going to be a lot of changes in management. I mean, Tony, you may disagree.
No, I agree completely.
Okay, we have another question. Will this reintegration affect high-cost software package purchasing and annual renewals? Will licenses be shared throughout all sites?
No.
It's a good question.
We're already seeing a little bit of that, William. So I think the answer is probably yes. I mean, NRAO had some software that Green Bank thought that they couldn't afford and are now sharing those licenses. In the future, I imagine that will continue. Now, as if staff at Green Bank identify licenses that are absolutely necessary, we have to look at each, of course, on a case-by-case basis. But we will certainly I think Green Bank will be better off in the license space.
Cool. And a follow-up one, which you already answered, about opening up opportunities to access to various tools throughout NRAO. Another question, in the case of news and public information, we've already consolidated several software / apps to shared access and will be more efficient. So this is a statement from Jill, who leads our communication office.
Yeah. Yes, Jill not only was moved into NRAO, she took over. So congratulations, Jill, for being the press officer for the entire observatory.
Okay. We still have a lot of people online. Any additional questions people would like to put forward?
One from Natalie.
Oh, yep, okay. Will this affect the Jansky postdoc position / applications? Will the GBO postdoc positions be discontinued and replaced with the Jansky postdoc position? That's an interesting insider question.
Yeah, it's an intriguing question, Natalie. I think the answer is probably yes. We haven't formally made the call there, but as I understand it, Jansky postdocs will be available at the Green Bank site. And we have our first Jansky coming back to Green Bank next in November, I believe, in a couple months. It doesn't really make sense to have two postdoc programs. So I imagine that we will probably replace the GBO postdoc position with a Jansky postdoc position. Now, it's not 100% official, but that's the way we're leaning.
Okay, I'm gonna wait a minute to see if anybody else wants to put any additional questions in.
One thing I would emphasize is, this is not any machination from NRAO or GBO. This was a directive from NSF. So, it's not that we were working behind the scenes to change this decision of several years ago. But NSF has decided to move forward in this direction. And one can speculate their reasons.
Okay. There are no other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end this webinar. So thank you, Jim and Tony, for coming on and taking these questions and presenting to our community. We'll have our next community Zoom, and I don't have it up on my browser right now, but it's in 2 weeks. We'll get back to sharing an individual a GBT result, science result, the next time. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you, Tony. Bye
Thanks, Tim.
now.